Hello, everyone. For today, we are going to tackle Filipino film. Filipinos started making movies in the year 1919. However, the film industry in the Philippines began through the initiatives of foreign entrepreneurs, like the two Swiss entrepreneurs. They basically introduced film or showed documentary films as early as 1897. Next slide, please. The youngest of the Philippine arts, film has evolved to become the most popular of all the art forms. It was first introduced on January 1, 1897 at the Salon de Petriera in Manila. Now, Salon de Petriera was established in the year 1896 by a Spaniard named Petriera. Now, that Salon de Petriera is the first movie theater house in the Philippines. So as you can see there, there's a picture that's the first movie theater housed in the Philippines. Now, films have ranged from silent movies to talkies, black and white color, outpacing its predecessors for gaining public acceptance from one end of the country to the other. Its viewers comes from all walks of life. Next slide. Now, nationwide, there are more than 1,000 movie theaters. Early in the 1980s, it was estimated in Metro Manila alone. There were around 2.5 million moviegoers. As an art form, it reflects the culture and the beliefs of the people. This caters their mind and the ones who shapes their consciousness. Next slide. Now, films made by Filipino people exhibited in this country and possibly in other countries from the 1930s to the 1990s. They also include films such as documentaries, animation, experimental, or alternative films and other types of films.
All right, at this point, let's talk about filmmakers. In the 21st century, or in the modern times, movies had been part of the modern life, and even so directed the actions of some individuals. Like, for example, some would say, let's go buy some tickets, watch this movie, or chat somebody like, let's go Netflix and chill, like that. But these movies wouldn't have been formed or had created an impact if it were made by a different person. I'm talking about movie directors. Now, from the Russo brothers that gave us the Avengers, up to James Cameron, who gave us the Titanic. Movie directors really deserve the credit that they receive. With this, let us take a look at some of the Filipino filmmakers that have made and given factors on making a film a Filipino film. First up, we have Brillante Mendoza. Brillante Mendoza was the first Filipino to win the Best Director award in the Cannes International Film Festival in France for his film Kinatay. He is also the only Filipino to receive an award from France in 2014. And he has directed 16 films since 2005, and these films include Maria Rosa, The Service. We also have Thy Womb, Captive, and Trap. Some of these are the movies that he has directed. Next slide, please. Right. Next up, we have Mario J. de los Reyes. He is a film and television director from the Philippines. He began his career in the 1970s and he won the Crystal Bear for the Best Feature Film for Magnifico during the Berlin International Film Festival. Now, some of his movies include, like I said, we have Magnifico, we also have Laman, Bagets, Naglalayag, A Love Story, and the most famous of all, or should I say, Um, the one that is I am most familiar with, we have The Unmarried Wife. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Last, we have Loris Guillen. She took a television production course under Nestor Torre in 1967. She is also a Filipino actress, a director, and a college professor in Ateneo. She began her work as an actress, starring in productions of Mrs. Warren's Profession, before crossing over to film and television work, playing as a seductress in Tinambang Ka Ngunit Kulang and Corazon Aquino in the drama A Dangerous Life. In 2009, she accepted a role in the indie film Carrera, which her first role was an independent production. Some of her movies include A Change of Heart, Sayo Lamang, Nagalit ang Buwan sa Iyo, I Love You Goodbye, and we also have American Adobo. So those were the Filipino filmmakers that have made a significant factor on making a film a Filipino film. Next slide, please. Now, moving on, I would love to share the screen with my groupmate as he would explain what Philippine films are. Take it up from here.
Good evening, everyone. This is Rodalio Mante, and I would like to discuss the most iconic films that shaped Philippine film. First on the list, we have The Lagang Bukid. Now, it is the first full-length Filipino film. It is a silent film directed and produced by Jose Nepomuceno, the father of Philippine cinema. This film is based on a zarzuela written by Hermogen Ilagan. It is about a young flower vendor named Angelita, forced by her parents to marry a wealthy old man, Don Silvestre, despite her love for Ciprian. The film was officially released on September 12, 1919, with English, Spanish, and Tagalog subtitles. Now, this is a very big deal for our country as it was the very first full-length silent film of Filipinas. And the audience, since it was a silent film, they had to rely on the subtitles to understand the characters' dialogue. Next slide, please. Next, we have Punyal na Ginto, a golden dagger, which is considered as the first talkie in the country. This masterpiece is made by Nepomuceno. It was premiered on March 9, 1933 at the Lyric Theater. Now, a talkie is a film with a distinct soundtrack. So, unlike silent film, a talkie, nanashay audio dialogue. So, the audience no longer have to rely on the subtitles to understand what the characters are saying. Next, please. Next, we have the Orasang Ginto. LVN Pictures Orasang Ginto was directed by Manuel Conde. It was the first post-war Filipino film. It focuses on Filipinos' misfortunes and tragedies during and after the war. It was released on March 4 to 13, 1946. Now, it was very famous or popular at that time as many Filipinos could relate to the tragedies on the aftermath of the war. Next slide, please. Next, we have Principe Amante. Now, this 1951 film is the first Filipino colored movie directed by national artist for theater and film Lamberto V. Avellana. This marked also the prevalent adaptation of Filipino comics into films, which implied more outlandish costumes and design. Again, this is a very big deal because Monisha first movie, which is technicolored or colored movie diri sa ato ang country. And not just that, it was the first, it started the era of comic books adaptations into films. Like, the very, for example, is ang ako ang pinumduman nga, nagikan sa comic book tapos i-adapt into Filipino film is katong mga comics sa una like Captain Barbell, Volta. That's where originally from Filipino comics nag-adapt into film. Next slide, please. Okay. Now we have the movie titled Uhaw. It is produced and directed by Ruben Abalos. Uhaw was the first bomba softcore porno film in the Philippines. The first of such Uhaw was premiered in 1970. Although it was a blockbuster hit at the time, it suffered from poor production quality, including screenwriting and technical aspects. Now, bomba is a term for soft porn, or it is a pornographic movie wherein it was not that explicit. Not everything is shown, but it is still a porno film. So it patok siya sa mata before because it was outlandish or like not like the traditional film. So it is one of the iconic films that shaped in the Philippine film. The next would be explained by Benedict.
So next is ang pagdating sa dulo. So this is one of Ishmael Bernal's film. So this is the Ishmael Bernal's directorial debut, and it's just a self-assured and uncompromising film. So pagdating sa dulo is released on June 10, 1971. So it was a satire on bomba films and tackled about vicious play of power in the show business industry. So ang storyline ani nga film is there is a taxi driver which is played by Rita Gomez, and the taxi dancer which is played by Rita Gomez, and taxi driver which is played by Vic Vargas. So there are fished out of poverty and anonymity by a commercial film director played by Eddie Garcia. So the obsession with success forces them to affect images as movie stars, which repress and eventually destroy them as persons and lovers. So muna siya ang storyline ani nga film. So next is ang Manila sa mga kuko ng liwanag. So this film is directed by Link Broca, and this is also based on the novel made by Edgardo M. Reyes, which is In the Claws of Brightness. So this film is considered by many as one of the greatest films in the Filipino film. So it talks about the story of Julio Madiaga, a young man from the province of Marinduque who arrives in Manila for a mission to find his lover, Ligaya. So while making plans for his mission, he has to survive the conditions in the capital city, contending with issues like crime and prostitution. So mo man jud na sa gagawin ang lahat para sa pag-ibig siya. Next is the Himala. So kani nga Himala is one appeal ni siya sa film ni nga ginama ni Ishmael Bernal. So this is one of Ishmael Bernal's films. So Himala is released at 1982, a Filipino film starring Nora Honor. Himala is the story of Elsa, a barrio lass whose visions of Virgin Mart changes her life and cause a sensation hysteria in a poor isolated northern village in the midst of drought. So the film is centered on the issues of religious faith, morality, and truth. So Himala is become a box office hit, an impressive of 30 million pesos. So dako kay siya hit nga film. So 30 million muna siya. So becoming one of the highest grossing Filipino films in 1980. So that's all.
Okay, so next film is The Floor Contemplation Story. So this is a 1995 drama film directed by Joel C. Lamangan and produced by Vic Del Rosario Jr. So The Floor Contemplation Story depicted the Filipina domestic helper of the name who was hanged in Singapore for allegedly killing her fellow OFW. So this film is about our fellow overseas worker. So its dramatization of real events, infusion of television views, clippings, and fictional or metaphorical depiction of the characters. The emotion are examples of directional techniques widely used in other popular films at the time. So the approach of directing or the plotting of the story is somewhat popular during that time of filming, so during the 90s. So next is Magnifico. So this is one of a very well-known film by Mario de los Reyes. So this is a dramatic independent film. So the story is about a boy who builds a coffin for his terminally ill grandmother. So while raising money to buy a wheelchair for his sister. So it has also been praised for their heart-wrenching storylines that seem to flourish during the decade. So even though that this was made or created during the 90s, it still gives a effect to the viewers in today's generation. So next is Kinatay. So this is directed by Brillante Mendoza. So Kinatay is an award-winning director, Brillante Mendoza's seventh feature film. So this is Mendoza's seventh feature film. So so the storyline is about showing the kidnap, beating, humiliation, rape, murder, and dismembering of a young prostitute. So it is also a nerve-shedding exploration of crime, which is both repellent and grimly compelling. So last film is By Bust. So there is a 2018 Philippine action thriller film co-written and directed by Eric Mati. So the film has been viewed as a social commentary on the controversial Philippine drug war initiated by the Duterte government. So this is like a depiction of the drug war that has been happening during the Duterte administration. So it also shows the perspectives on relevant issues and current events like the rages of Typhoon Yolanda, gender inequality, war on drugs, the continuous series of Rido or clan wars in Mindanao, funds come on religious sections, and many more. Rika?
So that's the end of our discussion, which is all about the Filipino film. Thank you for listening.